Hello there, my name is Martin Henley. This is the Effective Marketing Content Extravaganza. And if you've spent a second here, you will know that I'm on a mission to give you everything you need to be successful in your business, providing that is that what you need to be successful in your business is to be more interested in, more effective at doing sales and marketing. So I'm here giving you everything I know about sales and marketing. We are bringing you the marketing news every 2 weeks. I am reviewing the very best and the very worst of marketing content on the internet. And whenever I can, I am pulling in anyone I can find, anyone I've been introduced to, who will have knowledge that will be useful for you if you are interested to be more successful in your business. And that's what today is about. So today is Talk Marketing. So today's guest is a communications and political science graduate who has been working in the public speaking industry since 1986 when she was a celebrity booking agent. Since then, she has worked as a publicist and PR expert, founded the Coaches Certification Institute, Lifestyle Communication Incorporated, so that's founded the Coaches Certification Institute and the Lifestyle Communication Incorporated. Been the radio host of Star Causes for CBS Sports. She is currently running her business, Mary Gardner Communications, is an executive coach, professional speaker, TV host, reporter, spokesperson, has appeared on CNN, Fox, CBS, etc., and is a contributor to the Orlando Business Journal. She has worked with Mark Kelly, the astronaut, Billie Jean King, Martina, Navratilova, amongst a host of others, and presented at more than 100 universities. What you may not know about today's guest is that she healed her son off of the autism spectrum and wrote a book about it. There are several books, there are several programs, too many to mention. We will talk about those. Today's guest was introduced to us by the wonderful Tim S. Marshall. Today's guest is Mary Gardner. Good morning, Mary Gardner.
Hello, Martin. How are you doing?
I'm a little bit breathless now, having to say all that stuff that you've been doing. It's worn me out just talking about what you've been doing.
Well, it's been kind of a long career, so it's not, all at once. But, if you're in a career for any length of time, you get little nuggets and you, like yourself, want to share it with the world. And you get, it's like when I'm coaching people, I think, oh my gosh, that's good. So you write it down and share it. And, before long, you have a lot of content.
Yes, before long, you do have a lot of content. The thing is, I remember when I started my business in 2005, somebody said to me, you need more content on your website because it had 5 pages on it. It had a home page that said, this is effective marketing. And then it had like a services page and then something else and then a contact page. And that was it. And I remember saying to the guy, well, what on earth am I going to write about? And now, of course, the website is thousands of pages. Like this will be 13,000 words. This will all go on the website. So there's always content. I tell people, I'm speaking too much. I will shut up in a second. But I tell people that content is a little bit like love. Do you know the song? By Wet, Wet, Wet.
No, I don't know that. Would you like to sing it for us?
No. The song is Love Is All Around. And this is what I tell people because for money, I teach people digital marketing. And when I teach them social, when I teach them content marketing, I tell them that content is like love. It's all around. And you just have to get into the habit of collecting it and presenting it. That's what I tell people. But we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about you. Before we talk about, all of the stuff that you've done around sales, marketing, presenting, like you've done a lot of stuff, I'm really interested in this healing your son off of the autism spectrum. I mean, because that feels to me like an enormously powerful thing to have done alongside all of the other things that you've done. I think, I don't know if it's the state of our society now, but it seems like people tend to roll over, I think, easier than maybe they did historically. And they would just accept maybe that their son is on the autism spectrum. But you didn't do that. What did you do?
Oh, no, absolutely not. Well, all right. Well, thank you for talking about this. And first of all, my son now is 22. He is absolutely a phenomenal human being. He's in rip-roaring shape. He looks like a superhero. And he's doing amazing. So I want to encourage anyone who has any childhood chronic issues that everything can be healed. I truly, truly believe that everything can be healed, but you have to know that. And there are many dark times when you are going through a period of wanting to heal anything in your body, but our body naturally wants to heal. So what happened? Oops, I just lost my light. What happened for us? Sorry. Live TV, that's what happens. What happened for us was that my child at age 5 was diagnosed on the autism spectrum. He had sensory issues before that and sensory processing disorder. So he was really uncomfortable in his clothes. He was overly hyper. He couldn't keep his hands to himself. He had low muscle tone. And so he couldn't sit up like in circle time with children that are sitting up during nap time or whatever. So he basically, there were things that he would break his pencils or his crayons because he could hold it. He would hold them too tight. Then he would get in trouble. He was in a Catholic school at that time, and they were very regimented. And so it was just hard to deal with him. Transitions were very impossible. Could not get him to get to a place, couldn't get him to get dressed. So once I got him to sit down and eat, then he didn't want to leave. Once I got him in the tub, he didn't want to leave. He couldn't do transitions. And so I just started with intuition. I'm like, what do I do? I can't live like this. We can't go to a grocery store. We can't do anything because he runs away and it's impossible. So I just listened to my heart and I started massaging him. And I said, we got to do something about it. So I started massaging him, spending more time with him. I started playing really light music, peaceful music. I started reading to him the Old Testament, the Psalms and the Proverbs, just to be there at night with him. I didn't know what I was doing. There really wasn't any books or anything. There weren't any books to guide me in this. When I went to the experts, they said, finally, when he got diagnosed, there is no known cause and there is no known cure. And I'm like, that's BS. That's BS. I don't really freaking care what you say. I'm healthy. He's going to be healthy and we're going to do this. So I started a support group locally and I started inviting speakers in, doctors, mommies, network marketers, nutritional people. I did not care if it was network marketing, traditional medicine. If someone had success with it, I brought it in and we ended up having a huge amount of people that were in our support group. We were the first ones to really talk about gluten-free and to go out and do cooking, awareness type of stuff. I had people from all over the city show up for those. So it was it was 10, 11, 12 years ago now that we started this. There were no support groups. There was nothing online. And then Jenny McCarthy came out with a book and I read her book and how she did it also. So it really, for me and for us, was not just one thing. It was stress. It was food. It was exercise. It was attention, me giving him attention, me giving him time, my time. And then, slowly, we integrated things like magnets and filtered water, Kangen water, the alkaline water. We added nutraceuticals, vitamins, supplements. We did chiropractic and energy medicine. We did no food dye, no high fructose corn syrup. We did gluten and dairy free. So over time, as I integrated and learned more about the nutritional aspect that a body needs in order to thrive, Jeremy just started doing well. And by the time he was like in junior high and high school, he was fine. He was still a little hyper here and there, but we found out he had food allergies. Gluten made him very hyper and dairy made him really drugged. Like he was just over drugged. So cheese and everything made his sensory processing disorder, his hearing slow. So it swelled his brain. And so when you realize that your body needs to be cleared out, and eating healthy things in order for it to function at its best. And before I was like a busy mom working on Wall Street and run. Oh, here, let's throw down and have a, spaghetti meal with meatballs and spaghetti. And I mean, that was poison to his body. Pizza, poison, goldfish, the little crackers, poison. So I didn't realize all that. And over time now we eat really healthy, and he's now, on top of his diet like crazy. He doesn't drink, doesn't smoke. He does intermittent fasting. He's a good cook. So yeah, I'm so proud. It's the most thing that I'm proud of in my entire life.
Wow. I mean, that is an amazing thing. And I think the world has changed, and the way we eat has changed, and the way we get on together has changed. And I think we're seeing this in the health of people. Like, I really do.
Yeah.
I really do think like that. The industrialization of the food industry, the industrialization of everything, education, like both parents working very often. I don't think really I don't think we're really on subject for what we're supposed to be talking about, but I do think we're talking about something really important, which is that the world has changed. And I don't think people are really paying enough attention to that and the effect that it's having on children. Like ADHD,
Yeah.
we might have had a hyper kid or two in our school. Now,
Yeah.
it feels like every kid is on Ritalin. Do you know what I mean? I don't know, but it feels like that, you know? So I did some stuff in schools like 10 years ago. There would have been a kid or
Okay.
two in our year at school out of 400 kids who might not read. When I gave these
Hmm.
kids something to read, these were 13, 14-year-olds, like a third of
Hmm.
the class put their hand up saying, no, I can't read. It's,
Oh,
it's, it's incredible,
mm.
actually, the change that's happening, I think. And I don't think people are paying attention to it.
It is tragic. 1 out of 5 children have chronic illnesses now.
Yeah.
And, as I found, it isn't one thing. Like, you could blame something like, let's say, a typical thing that an autistic family who starts the research is going to blame the vaccines. But it's never only the vaccines that may trigger something in people. But it also is the food that you're eating and digesting. It's your lifestyle. It's like what you're saying, these kids, they can't read. Are they spending ample time with their parents? Do they get hugs? Are their bodies being worked out and running? And, oftentimes if the parent is working and the kid is sitting home in front of the TV or in front of their iPad, it's not generating their body. It's like not getting the work. And, like when we were growing up, we were outdoors, we were running, and it is a different day and time. And so I would just encourage everyone to me. And here's what I had to do, because I ended up being a single mom after, a lot of families that go through hardships like that end up divorcing, and I did. And a lot of parents, whether it's the male or female, oftentimes it's only one parent that wants to dedicate themselves to this, because it is a restructuring of your lifestyle. You don't take on the same amount of stress. You don't put your kid in every single sport. My child, when he was in sports, was too hyper, and a lot of the instructors just couldn't handle him. And so I took him out and I took him to the pool. Swimming was a really, really great place for him to be, because when you're swimming laps, you're getting linear exercise with your brain, and it's helping you focus. So it may seem dull in the pool, but it helps your brain quite a bit. That's why I look at like Michael Phelps. I think Michael Phelps, if you ever look at him, his mouth droops. I think he's got sensory issues. He may have been on the spectrum at some point. He may have had low muscle tone when he was a kid. And so oftentimes, if you don't do the work and get your body in a good place through food and nutrition, you will self-medicate through alcohol and, stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's important that parents learn to do this for their children when they're young.
100%. Yeah. 100%. And I really, I'm inspired by that, because I think, because this is the way it feels to me it goes. I don't have experience of this. You go to a doctor and they just say, well, this is how it is. There is no cause,
Yeah.
there is no cure. Like, you basically wear it. And no, I have every respect that you actually overcame that. That's an incredible story, all by
There are a
itself.
lot of dark days, and a lot of crying, a lot of tears. I found things also. I take a blue-green algae. It's by E3 Live. I don't know if it's available worldwide, but it was something that kept me calm. And I do a lot of things to keep me calm too, nutritional products, because the anxiety, I think, is what drives so much of us.
Yeah.
We're living in a hyper focused world right now. So no, yeah. But I'm happy to talk to anybody if they are interested. Plug them into. There's lots of groups on Facebook where mommies are sharing information, and so yeah, you just have to plug in.
Okay, super cool. And you wrote a book. What's the book called?
Yeah, I did. My book is called Blessed Chaos.
Excellent.
And it's surviving and managing ADHD and SPD with family, faith, and food. And I used my faith a lot because you are in such a dire place when you're having issues, whether it's your child has cancer or whether they have whatever it is. Oftentimes you're really isolated as a person and as a parent, and you so long for your child to have the ability to go and play with kids. And I have a lot of friends whose children right now are not thriving and they don't know why. And, certainly I have my opinions about some stuff, but we don't know. Every child is different. And so it really is up to the parent to detox their child, to feed them the best whole foods possible. Really, I believe that gluten in the United States is not healthy for anyone if you're using it as the basis for the core of your food. The wheat has changed so much. It used to be that wheat would grow tall and thin, and then they started putting preservatives, and it grows short and fat. And so wheat is just not a healthy preservative, for us
No.
to put in our bodies. So we do all gluten-free.
Yeah. And we should get off this subject because it's not really what we're here to talk about, but I am fascinated.
Yeah.
But I don't think people really are quite as aware. I mean, when I was growing up, I'm not too far behind you, I don't think. The population's doubled. The population of the planet has doubled.
Oh,
and
wow.
the way we have literally engineered, like feeding the planet, has evolved enormously, like you say, like the very nature of wheat. So people are kind of dismissive of this idea that people, always ate bread or whatever, but they're not seeing that the transformation that agriculture has gone through, and the dairy farming has gone through, and meat farming has gone through, because it really has. It's changed dramatically in the last 30, 40 years. Yeah. Anyway, that's a truly inspiring story. Well done, you.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. If I can get my kid, he's fixing my circle light that fell. He's quite mechanically inclined, so he's fixing it right now. But if I could get him to... That's all right, Jeremy. So yeah, live TV. One time I was on live TV showing a bunch of products, and right before I went on, everything toppled onto the ground. And literally I had about 15 seconds. I threw everything back on the table, was back. And, so you just go with it when you have live, stuff happens.
Yes,
so
yes.
Anyway, yeah, we got a light back. We're looking good. Jeremy, come say hello.
I really have to go.
Oh, he's got to go. Okay.
Yeah,
okay, no worries. Okay, good.
Anyway, let's talk marketing and keynoting.
Yeah, should we bring some order to this? That's what we should do.
Absolutely.
So, there's only 5 questions. So I'll repeat the 5 questions for you. You don't have to remember them. I've memorized them. There's only 5.
I'm so
it's not
happy
difficult
about
to do that. So the first question is, how are you qualified to talk to us about your specialist subject? Your specialist subject is supporting leaders to develop and present keynote speeches. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Stand by that?
Yeah.
Okay, so the second question then is, who do you work with? How do you add value to their lives? The third question is, what is your recommendation for people who want to get better at developing and presenting keynote speeches? The fourth question, really easy, what should people read? The fifth question, who can you throw under the bus who might enjoy to have a conversation or endure maybe to have a conversation like this with me? So those are the 5 questions. So how are you, Mary, qualified to talk to us about this thing? Developing and presenting keynote speeches.
Yeah. So I started off my career always, I guess I never was really that popular in high school. Although when I was in 7th grade, I was sitting in my drama class, and this gal, Tracy, popped her head in the door and said, "Hi, Mrs. Long." And Mrs. Long, our drama teacher, turned around and said, "Hi, Tracy." And then everybody in the entire class was like looking at her. And Mrs. Long said, "You know, there's only some people that when people walk in the door, everybody looks. And Tracy is one of those kind of people." And so it was that point of time I was like, I want to be one of those kind of people where you're noticed and people have a good feeling about you. So I started kind of studying popularity and how to get it and how do you get to that influential state. So I started studying it, and I think by college I had mastered that by getting to know people, by joining the right groups, and by being a part of successful groups and participating and volunteering. And so as a leader, I started doing speaking, and also on my Catholic retreats and things like that. So I started speaking. So I had a real interest in it personally, and I majored in communication in college. And then I decided, where do I want to go? So I went to Capitol Hill to make my money, and to make my millions. Well, I realized quickly that working on Capitol Hill was a bunch of 25-year-olds running the country. It's a lot of young people who are very self-important and very intelligent. And so I didn't love that, but then I landed as an agent at Kepler Speakers. It's one of the top country's speaker bureaus. And so I started for 7 years. I got to watch the top speakers in our nation go out and speak and entertain audiences. And as an agent, I was meeting university presidents and students across the United States, and meeting people who had the hunger to impress people and to influence people. So back in the day, I was booking and working with like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who was talking all about the environment at that point. I was working with and representing Sarah Weddington, the attorney that argued Roe versus Wade. And I put her in debates against Phyllis Schlafly, the Eagle Forum right-wing woman. So I would have these huge debates. Some of the other agents would just book the event and it would be over. But I said, no, you got to go to the liberals and you tell them that the other side is going to bring posters, but no posters are allowed inside the auditorium. And you tell both sides that, hey, the other side is bringing posters, but you cannot bring them in the auditorium. They're like, what? They're going to have posters? They're going to have picketing? Oh my gosh. So I would help them create a riot outside their school. Of course, the media would show up and it would be this big thing. And so I know that I helped educate lots of people around the United States for many years on these two issues. And so on the issue of pro-life, pro-choice. And so I was always into helping people understand. So marketing was a big part of it. Having creative ideas was a big part of it. And when you have somebody who is a genuine thought leader, they have to be good on stage. So I got to travel with the speakers. Then I opened a PR firm at one point where I was helping them craft speeches and get out and do TV tours and write books. And then I was starting to coach, and there wasn't a business called coaching. I called it personal consulting, and I was charging people $150 a month. If you have questions about your speaking career or your brand or whatever, call me. I'll help you do it. So it was the early days before coaching. And so I started doing that. And then I heard that coaching was now a profession. So I jumped on board and started coaching speakers. So I've been probably one of the longest running speaker coaches in the nation. I then started a coach training company where it wasn't just speaking. Speaking was at the highest end of the pinnacle, but it was all about how do you do it? What questions do you ask? How do you get certified? So we had 5 workshops that were a total of like 80 hours of training. And then, so we were training hundreds of people in coaching. But honestly, my passion lied more with helping individuals find their purpose. And that was through influencing the world and serving the world. So I started writing speeches. And so it's just been a long career. At this point, I've worked with NFL players, Hall of Famers, Olympians, people on TV, people who've won Dancing with the Stars, people who are medical doctors. And I landed on where my favorite is to really help introverts. Introverts are individuals who are thought leaders and intelligent, but oftentimes don't have the boldness to go out and the courageousness to go out and say, hey, I got something for ya. They wait oftentimes to be tapped on and to be seen. So now I help people infuse them with confidence so they will go out and they will talk, because it's important that we hear them too. So I've been working now in the fields of healthcare, hospitals, of course, medical, insurance, financial, technology, construction, and engineering. So left brain fields where the people are genuinely operational, logical, intelligent humans. And I say now, I bring the sizzle to their steak. So I help these thought leaders become phenomenal on stage through their bodies and their emotions and their content. And it is my passion and I love it. And my motto is, we inspire the inspiring. So that's what I do.
Wow. Okay, good. It feels like you're happy speaking about this. It feels like you've spoken about this before. It feels like this is your passion. That's what it feels like. Do you want the good news?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm happy to accept that you are eminently qualified to talk to us about developing and presenting these keynote speeches.
Thank you, Martin.
You are very welcome. This is the highest accolade. You thought certifications, blah, blah. You thought presenting to hundreds of universities. No, if I think you're qualified, then you are absolutely qualified. But it's not without its issues, is it? It's not without its issues. I think great market. Obviously, it's the introverts who need the coaching. You know, the extroverts, they don't need the coach. I mean, they might need the coaching, but they won't be as aware that they need the coaching. So good market. What did I want to say? People don't really... Here's where you started at school. I don't think, and I don't know if it's the same in the US education system as it is in the UK system. I don't think the education system, certainly where I came from, supports people like us who go on, and I'm happy to accept you're on a completely different level. I was always the Larry kid at school. I was like making people laugh, getting attention, all this sort of stuff. Nobody ever sat me down and said, Martin, you know what? You're going to be a salesperson and you're going to be a presenter, and that's what you're going to be. And you should go in this kind of direction. They sent me out of the class is what they did. You know, so it seems to me that the way we do education doesn't really support people like us who go on and have, I think, personality type careers. Like if you're selling, if you're managing, if you're leading, if you're presenting, that's kind of a personality type career. What do you think about that? I mean, you were sitting in a drama class. I also took drama. It feels to me like a lot of people, I don't know if you consider yourself, I know you've done more marketing type stuff in your career other than this, but it seems to me like lots of marketers and lots of marketing is kind of performative. You know, it attracts a lot of people with a performer's bent. What do you think about those ideas that somebody should be saying to those Larry kids in the schools, this is what you're going to be and this is the way you could develop towards that already? Do you know what I mean? Rather than sending them out without even knowing that these careers are available and then having to get really lucky. I think.
I love that. Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I think by the time people are in college, they're studying entrepreneurship now. And in the elementary and junior high and high school, there are charter schools where people can really delve in and do the creative arts or whatever. But what you're suggesting is even more. It's that personality. And I truly never did acting. I did the drama class, but I never really did acting. But I was kind of, and speaking is a little bit of a combination of content and personality. And so there are a lot, just like there are a lot of actors who are introverts, there are a lot of speakers that are introverts, because knowing and memorizing content is really important if you're going to be a keynote speaker, for sure. So it takes those things. I love your thought about grabbing those kids. You were probably one of those athletic type that needed to be out on the field most of the day and running it all out and then coming back. I know schools are not capable of handling a lot of high energy people. I agree with you. And I tried to send my son at one point to it was like a camp environment school, and it just didn't work out. But there are things available when parents recognize that. The problem is sitting your child down and round peg, square hole, whatever. It's like you really have to identify what does your child need in order to thrive, and what are those natural things, and feed that. So I think if parents are in tune, and it comes down to then, are they too busy? Do they have too much anxiety to really pay attention to what their children need? So I think there's a lot of let's support the parents. Let's do workshops. I agree with you, Martin. I think that's a fabulous idea to take those kids that are personality driven and to start working with them. I know here in Florida, they have at 5th grade, they all have to do a speech on stage. So I've been lucky enough to help some of these kids be able to speak and do that. One of the kids ended up winning in high school the Florida thing, and then went and worked in the White House, and was working under President Trump in the White House, and now he's going to law school at Georgetown. And so it can work. You can find those kids that have it and nurture them if you find it early. So it can be done.
I think so. I think if I were more settled, I'd want to be doing that, like going to the schools and saying, give me your troublesome kids, you know what? Because I think there's something about that. Do you know what I mean? I think there's something about, I don't know, that strength of personality. Like if you're going to be in sales, you don't want to be accepting everything everyone says to you. Do you know what I mean? Because you're never going to sell anything. Do you want to hear 2 funny things?
I do.
I did acting when I was at school. I auditioned for the part of Oliver Twist for a BBC production. But do you know why I didn't get it? And they told me this. I was 12. They told me it's because my face was too fat.
Oh.
It's over. It's okay. I'm over it now. The other funny thing that happened to me is we had careers guidance. And because I'd always done drama, I did drama at school. I was in all the plays. I auditioned for like some things. And then I did theatre studies at A-level. That's like 16 to 18. We do that. So I had some careers guidance, and they said, what do you want to do? And I said, I'd be really interested to work in TV. And they said to me, well, there's a TV factory in the industrial estate, so maybe you can start there and work your way up. So this is maybe why I've come to this attitude, which is that these Larry kids like me, I don't think the schools, maybe it's much better now. It sounds like it's better there, and maybe it is much better now, but maybe they don't realize that a percentage of people go out into sales roles. Do you know what I mean? Or into marketing roles, or into like these kind of more creative things. And they're not, certainly when I was there, it was a long time ago, they weren't geared up for that. So that's one thing I think. The other thing that I think that's interesting when I speak to presenting people is I don't think people appreciate how valuable being able to present is in a career, you know, and how because the people who can present are such a minority, and who can and are prepared to present are such a minority, that it's almost like a free lane all the way past all of the other stuff, you know?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Those people get tagged a lot. Yeah, that is true. Let me chat about that, but let me jump back to your story about being fat. And
I've never said I was fat. I had a fat face. That was all.
You had a fat face. And as the acting, and this is something to note that, and I have a friend whose child just went through the drama thing. She applied for the lead role. She didn't get it. And so managing expectations of a child, because that could really hurt and destroy somebody's self-esteem, from the part of the director, having a chubby face would not reflect the role, because they were looking for somebody who was like weak and like, please, so I want some more, you know, skinny and sullen and sunk in and all that. So that was important. However, that story is really good, Martin, for you on stage. I have a client that just is, he shared with me, he's a up and coming CEO. And he told this story of how when he was in high school, he was literally fat. He was 450 pounds. And the coach called him out in the middle of a gym in front of hundreds of students and made fun of him right on in front of everybody. And this kid was at that point, he got so embarrassed and so frustrated. Ultimately, he decided to do something about it and say, nobody's going to make me, you know, in a certain way, and I'm not going to be called fat again. So he got in great shape, became a phenomenal athlete, a state champion. And then by his senior year, the coach came back to him and said, "Hey, I want you to join the football team." And the guy said, "Over my dead body." And then he told this story on stage, how, things happen to us, and he got his first standing ovation. So my point being, Martin, that's a really good story for you to tell on stage.
Okay, well, we need to have this conversation because that's 32 stone, 450 pounds. Because we do stones and pounds. You don't do the stones bit. We do stones. That's really heavy, 450 pounds, 32 stone. That's twice as heavy as I am now. Okay.
Oh, yes. He was. Oh, I see with weight. Yeah, he was absolutely,
Yes.
he was enormous. And then the other point that you made is that these skills are really valuable in a career. And it's absolutely true. And what happens is, and how I teach is, most people that I'm working with are engineers or they're accountants, and they've learned that expertise in their career matters. But there's a certain point when they're starting to become better and better and better that they need to grab back and start mentoring younger people. And that is when the competencies of leadership take over. So there's a dry period. Anytime that we're building competencies, there's a period where you're not so good, but you need to be learning those competencies, which are about creating vision, strategy, communication, coaching. These things are so pivotal and so key. And at that highest level, being able to speak and motivate and inspire your team is the public speaking component that people have to work on. And it's a combination, as you mentioned. It's a combination of having good content, having charismatic words that electrify people and inspire and give hope to people, and also that they're in sync with their body and that they can be able to present it in a way that makes sense and that can really stimulate people's thought and to take action. So you're right. It's a great career move to learn.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go further because I remember when I started presenting, I was working for an IT company. I was like a sales guy. I was the least technical person. I was the least competent person, but I was the only person that could actually stand up in front of a group of people. And we were presenting to the boards of like international banks and insurance companies and those kinds of things. And I was the only person. So I was just always there doing that thing. Do you know what I mean? I became really valuable because I was the only person who could do that without melting into nothing or just sounding completely stupid for however long it was that they had to speak for. So I think more than that. I think if you can present just on its own, I think the rest of the stuff, like the people around you can help you with. Do you know what I mean? But if you've got that where you just don't mind, and I've never minded. Do you know what I mean? I've never cared for a second. So this is the other thing that I want to have. We're coming to the second question, which is, what do you do for people and how do you add value? Who do you work with? How do you add value? Maybe we're there. Okay, so question number 2 for when we clip this up. Who do you work with? How do you add value to their lives? Here's my assertion. Here's my question. Are speakers born or can they be made? That's my question.
I love that. That's a great question, is who do I work with and how do I work with them? And are speakers born that way or are they made that way? We'll start with that because I do believe, like in your case, you have natural energy and you have a natural charisma and you have this thing in you that drives and really wants to help serve people through performance and through education. So you've got a gift in you. And I always believe if someone has tapped into something that they love, that is the most important thing that you express in the world, because people are going to be automatically attracted to that. When you have that passion, it's magnetic. And so some speakers have that natural charisma. Some leaders have to be brought out of. And how do I work with these people to tap into that charisma? And how I tap into that personality is by finding out who they are and things about them that are really important. So how I do it is I interview them, and I do the first part of the interview is all about their early childhood, their life. What did they do? Were they doing sports? What was their relationship with their families? Did they have siblings? Did they have fun? Did they have tragedy? So we look at their whole life. And then the second part of the interview is about their choices as a career. Who did they end up as? What did they do? What kind of values did they create in their careers? And how did they gain the success that they have? What were the decisions that they made and why? So I start to look at their entire life. And then in that, we put together after that a motivational speech. So I actually put together a speech for them. And normally we start off with a story from childhood or something that was very impactful for them, something that gripped their heart that they will be able to tell from the stage in an authentic way that was really, it will just grab everybody. So in that regard, the introverts, if they're willing, oftentimes it's too close to home. So I have a bounce back formula where we create a story. So if it was something that was a tragedy, we don't go all the way so they're going to burst into tears on stage. We tell and we practice a story that is something that is going to manifest a good feeling ultimately. So we look at their lives, what were the lessons they learned, and now how can they put them together in a keynote for their audiences now. So I interview them, I write the speech, then we practice is how I work with them.
Okay, good. Because I think you're getting to the other, where you've got to already to the other talking point, which I'm not quite ready for yet.
Okay.
I still want to think about this. Okay. I mean, you're answering the questions early, maybe.
Well, let me share a little bit more about that because
can I just say what I'm thinking? Because otherwise I'm going to forget.
Yeah.
I've never cared. Like there's never been a time where I've got up in front of an audience and I've been nervous or concerned or anything. Like I've never had stage fright. I've never, and I've got a theory, if I may. May I?
Yeah, definitely.
I think if you are nervous when you get up on stage, you've got it completely wrong. If you're nervous for you, you've got it wrong. And I think the key to that is to understand that it's actually got very little to do with you. And it's all about delivering value for the audience. And if your focus is on you, then your focus is 180 degrees in the wrong direction. And what you need to do is take your focus and turn it around 180 degrees and know that it's about those people in the audience. And
100%.
And I think that for me is why I've never had stage fright. I've never stood up in front of a group of people and thought this could go badly, because my mission is always, I'm here to do my very best for them. Do you know what I mean? So
I do, but somehow you had content in your head that you knew you were going to deliver. You weren't just going to get up there and dance. You had to know stuff.
That's interesting because not always. No.
Okay.
Yeah, because what? Because I think I've got some sort of ability to, I mean, when I'm in front of a group of people, that's my flow state, you know, the idea of flow. Then it all just happens. Then I'm awake, all the lights on, everything is happening. I'm fully functioning. You know, that's my flow state. But I think I've got some kind of ability to kind of know what needs to be said. You know, if you stand up at a family function and someone says somebody has to say something, then I kind of feel like I know what has to be said. So I don't have to have content. But also when I present, I like to think of it as a conversation I have with them. So because I'm also nosy, I've got like a head full of questions. So if I run out of things to say, I'll just fire a question. Do you know what I mean? And then I think the really good stuff comes from the interaction, because it's like everything in marketing, in life, is until you test it, you haven't got a clue if it's working. Do you know what I mean? You've got really, you can do as much research, spend as much time as you like preparing the content, but unless you're actually looking for that feedback, you've got no idea if it's landing or if it's appropriate or whatever it is. So that's kind of my idea is, I've always got a head full of questions, and you know, I throw soldiers around the room for when they engage in stuff. So I've developed like a whole stupid thing, but people really like it, you know, and
Oh yeah, because you're
I really
entertaining.
like it.
But the difference is that a keynote is a presentation that is not normally interaction. So that's different than what you're doing, which is really warming up the crowd, workshop or meeting type of thing where you're able to
Yes.
engage, ask questions. I love that too. That's my favorite. I have a course called the Charisma course, which is teaching people how to be interacting like that, how to have that, what you just identified. It's not about me. It's about you and how can I serve you and how can I bring the best out of you? And I say, when you walk into a room, you say, this is my party. And if you're having a party, then you get everybody doing something. This person over here, you take care of the food, you take the coats, you take the purses. Let's get everybody working together. And so that's the concept really of a workshop, which is a great skill because then it's fun, interactive, you're getting everybody working. Now, a little side note, introverts don't always like interacting like that. I
No,
have
they don't.
found that sometimes they're sitting here like this and they're like, okay, arms crossed, don't want to interact. I'm private, don't want to do it. So they're also, in addition to that, there are techniques to be able to get people to loosen up and to move your body in a certain way. It's almost like I have little cats. I have 2 little baby kitties, which if they keep going by me. And with kitties, you can't grab them because they're going to run out. But the way that you approach them is really quiet, and you get down on the ground and you blink your eyes in a way that makes them see I'm vulnerable. And then they come over to you, put your little finger in their nose. So introverts are often like cats. And so you don't come on gangbusters, like, hey, everybody, get a buddy. Like they're like, ooh. So
Yeah.
there's also that, and I know that, Martin, because you're good and you're a genius at people and you have high emotional intelligence, you understand that. You'll see people that are shying away from that. And I know that because you're good at what you do, you will understand that intuitively to not become so bold in front of somebody who's like offensive or just like shy. So you learn those things over time, but you're describing a really fun environment. That's the warm-up crowd, not the keynote.
Right. Okay, good. And people have said that to me before, and I kind of agree. So we'll go to what a keynote is then and how you develop a keynote. And I think people have got a much better sense of this because of like the TED thing. So people have got a sense of that's what a keynote is.
That's right.
Okay,
that's
good.
Right.
Right. Okay, so we'll go to that. The other thing that I want to talk about is this idea of content versus performance. So what you said to me is that I must have had some really great content for some reason. So what I'm interested to know is, and I kind of get a sense of what the answer might be anyway, but is it about content? Can content carry the presentation on its own? Can presentation carry the presentation on its own or the keynote on its own? What is the relationship there? With the people you work with, that you really like to work with now, the extroverts, what is the more important component of those two things?
So I work more with introverts, not extroverts, but I do work with extroverts as well. And as you mentioned previously, someone like yourself, if I were working with you, I would sit down and maybe we would be taping it and riding a bike or something. So you would not have to be sitting there in your, whatever. We'd accommodate you, or I'd interview you and you'd get to talk, and then we put it together. A keynote is just like what you said about the TED Talk. It is a condensed, or it's a presentation that is scripted. So it's got an introduction, it's got a body, and it's got a conclusion. Hopefully the conclusion is the call to action that gets people to take action. So the introduction of your presentation needs to be a story, hopefully a personal story that will grab the attentions and the heart. And when you're doing a presentation, you want to justify persuasion. If you're doing something persuasion, or if you're telling a story, you're going to give details and you're going to give story. But persuasion is about justifying on facts and logic. And then people buy off of emotion. So giving like you started out with me, Mary, what's your credibility? So giving the data, giving the facts, and then sharing the stories, those are a good combination. So in the context of your keynote, you're going to have both. You're going to have the data, the facts, the issues, the stats, whatever, and you're going to have the story, and that makes up a really good presentation. So there are different types of keynotes. There's persuasive speaking, there's informative speaking, there's storytelling, there's motivational speaking. So it depends on what your intention is for the keynote. When we're doing our boot camp, we're helping people write their motivational speech, and that's about success and it's about choices. And so the majority of them are everybody has the ability to do a motivational speech, even if they're a homeless person, because they got to, do choices. But one of the things that we talk about, don't be telling stories if you're still in, we call it the shit pit. And I apologize for using that word. That's just what we call it. If you're in the doldrums and you're in a really bad place, it's hard for you to be a motivational and tell that as a story. You can reach back in the corner, back in life that you've already gone through hard things. But we get people in your story at the worst moment that you ever went through. And then we take them out of the shit pit into the sandy beach, step by step by step by step. And when you're on the sandy beach, you're drinking a pina colada, you're sitting under the sun, under an umbrella, and you've made it. And you can go back into your story and say, here's how I did it. And that is a maker of a really good story. So basically a keynote, after a keynote, people are going to remember maybe 2 stories that you told, and they're going to remember how they felt about you. They may remember 1 stat or 2, or just, got clarification, but they're going to remember how they felt around you. So you asked, what is more important, the content or the personality? I would say they're both important. And when somebody goes up on stage and only delivers good content, and they're giving a PowerPoint and they're talking to the PowerPoint, the speaker fades into the woodwork and they don't even remember who that person was. They could have just given a TED Talk, or say, here's a video for a TED Talk, or here's my paper. You can do my white paper. So my opinion is that every thought leader who is going into leadership, who wants to inspire people and have success in their career, needs to learn how to speak in public, telling stories from the heart. That's my opinion.
Good. Excellent. I didn't mean, I meant performance, I think is what I meant. So is it content or is it performance? So I'm kind of imagining someone who is more introverted would need the crutch of really strong content to give them the confidence maybe to deliver the performance. Maybe someone who's more performance capable wouldn't need such strong content. You're absolutely right. It's the key. It's the two things together.
Well, yeah, it is true. I apologize for not going into that, but it's like the story can be the performance. And I've seen we have a TED Talk speaker that we show in the boot camp, and she's a high introvert. She's she's Korean, and she escaped from Northern Korea, I think it was, or Southern Korea. I can't remember. Sorry. She's very quiet. And the whole time she's telling her story like this, but her story is riveting. And so in that regard, it fit who she was and what she went through. It was a very sensitive time, how they were hiding in the rice paddies, and how they, people were getting captured and killed. And so her performance was not vivacious. It wasn't charismatic. It wasn't somebody who's like wowing the stage, but her story was riveting. And so you could cut the air like a knife because she was so amazing. So you have to fit the story with the performance and the personality. And what I do with a person like you, I would say, all right, Martin, we're going to take a serious point in time. And instead of you being so vivacious on stage and talking fast and being loud, we're going to take you to a place of where you're humble and you're quiet, and you're going to capture attention by being less than and not by being extra. And so I'm going to take your personality down to a level, and maybe you're going to talk really fast and you're going to give some data and give that stuff. So we're going to balance your personality just like an introvert. I'll take them and have practice being loud. I'll have them scream across the whole room and get out of their body, because we all have a typical way of being. And my job as a speech coach is to take you and scramble you up and allow you to feel what it feels like to be your opposite, and then to present that opposite person on stage. So then your heart and your head are in alignment and they reach everybody in the audience. And for every person to know, introvert, extrovert, you are performing, and you need to show both sides of your brain and both sides of your personality. And how I take people to get like you, I take them back to when they were 13 years old, hanging out at a family reunion, hanging with their childhood friends and their cousins, where they're being rambunctious and silly and having fun. So I remember and bring them back to that state so they can perform that on stage as well.
Cool. Excellent. What am I thinking now? Now I'm thinking it's interesting because you're talking about introverts and I'm talking about extroverts because I'm getting it wrong. I was once at a thing, it was like a workshop thing, and I was a participant. And what they asked us to do is they asked us to go around the room and you had to tell everyone you encountered in the room whether you thought they were introvert or extrovert. And basically the room was about 50-50 split, people who'd seen me speak and people who hadn't seen me speak. Anyone who'd seen me speak said I was an extrovert. Anyone who hadn't said I was an introvert. Because I've always had this thing, either I'm running the room or I'm not, do you know what I mean? Because I was that rowdy kid that disrupted classes at school. So I don't want to be that anymore. So I think it's kind of interesting. What's the other thing that I wanted to say? I wanted to say, for me, I did a stand-up comedy course. So I did stand-up comedy because I was presenting a lot and because, you know, as a kind of development. And what I didn't know about stand-up comedy until I did that is that it's entirely scripted. And that for me, and a keynote is the scariest thing. Because if you've got it wrong, you're on that track. Do you know what I mean? There's nowhere for you to go. And that for me is the scariest thing. Like I really want that engagement and that feedback to know that this is landing or that it's the right thing or whatever that might be. So this idea of standing and just giving for 20 minutes, I'm sure I could do it. And, you know, I did okay at stand-up. I came up with something quite original, funny. But for me, that's the most scary thing.
I agree. Yes, it's hard. I agree. And I'm glad that you said that and that you've gone through that scripting process. And that's why it's easy or better, I think, and you can share with me what your thoughts are on that, to be able to collaborate with someone. Because oftentimes if you're just trying to write yourself, you're not getting that energy and you're not like, your brain isn't like coming up with the best of. So how did you write your comedy? Was it just by you going out in the world and then, oh, that was good? Or did you sit down and write? How did you come up with your comedy?
I did a comedy course and it was absolute genius. It was absolute genius because what we did is there were like 20 people on the course and it went on for 12 weeks, every Saturday afternoon for like 12 weeks. And what she did in the first couple of sessions is tell us how to write jokes. And then basically every Saturday afternoon, we'd get up in front of each other and just share the stuff that we'd been writing. It was genius. It was so brilliant. And what's the point of that? The point of that is that's the only way, that's how you do stand-up comedy. Like if you listen to the most famous stand-ups, what they do is they write stuff and then they go out and test it. So I suppose that kind of comes into somewhere where I am, where I want that immediate interaction, that feedback to know that this is a good thing or not. I think it's interesting. I think it's really interesting. Yeah, I think it's... I've always thought, like, you've got a sense probably that I'm kind of running away from my responsibilities. There's easier ways to make money on YouTube. There's easier ways for me to make money. I've always thought that I should put together like a motivational hour and come to the United States and flog that with my accent and my weird, quirky way of presenting. I thought maybe I could make some money. Maybe I need to get one of your workshops. Your boot camps.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah, it's hard, I will tell you, for someone like you or like me too, because one of the things that drives us so much is people. And I finally kind of got to the place where people are phenomenal. But if I don't take my content and deliver it and do something with it and monetize it, then I'm not going to be able to be with people because I'll be on the streets, or living in whatever. So it's a discipline. You get to a place as an extrovert who need people to monitor your time a little bit better. And I think over time, I've become more of an ambivert and I've become satisfied. So I had to do a lot of things like I write in a journal. And that keeps me solid. I take the brain on, so that keeps my brain happy. I exercise as much as I can, so I get out of that energy, because that person who's high drive, extrovert, has a lot of energy, and you need to manage your energy. And then you've got the focus to be able to sit down and actually accomplish things. But then I also look at someone like you or like me. There are many things I cannot do as a high extrovert personality type. And I need that introvert to be able to organize me, to put my business on, online, and to do the technology and things that I'm not so great at. So the thing that's so wonderful, Martin, is that we all need each other. Those introverts need you in order to bring that sizzle to their work. And the extroverts need the introverts to be able to be solid and get the information, glean out the real data and the information that's helpful to people. So together they make a great presentation. They can make a great keynote. So I think you would do very, very well at doing what I do, which is help introverts become influencers.
Potentially. What I've always seen, or what I've always thought is it needs to be a personal story, and so, for example, like the people who demand the biggest fees are the people who sailed solo around the world, climbed Mount Everest, did something phenomenal. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
I am interested in this. And so, I don't know. I thought that, well, I'm just ordinary. Do you know what I mean? I just had an ordinary kind of upbringing, bringing an ordinary kind of career, blah, blah, blah. So I don't have that, so it would make it more difficult. What was the thing that I wanted to say? I wanted to say that, so those stories, so I think there's something in ordinary. Like there's something from going, like if you're not, what's her name? The woman who sailed solo around the world. Like if you're that amazing person, then that's not necessarily motivational for people. What I think is, in sales and marketing, in presenting, in teaching, in all these things, you have to find people where they are, and you have to take them to the next step, the next place. You know, that's really as much as you can do. Whereas you're not really doing that if you're, I don't know what I'm saying. I've run out of steam.
Well,
you say something.
I want to share with you one of the things that I am thinking about are speakers that did exactly what you're saying. They didn't do something extraordinary. They didn't go out and save the world. They didn't go on a magical adventure. They didn't climb Mount Everest. But here's what they did. They saw who are the most expensive speakers. What are the trends in speaking? What is the title, or what could I do and create a keynote? So I have a friend, his name is Giovanni Livera. I'm telling you, creative genius. Creative genius meaning he was a magician, and he's been at the height of the level of magic. And then he was the guy that invented, I don't know if you've seen those things where they shoot the t-shirts into the stadiums. I don't know if you've ever seen that. They shoot t-shirts. He invented that. Then if you go to a basketball game and they have people walking around with a big basketball hoop on the top of their, neck, and throwing the basketball, and they get a t-shirt or whatever, he invented that. So he was the official magician for the Amway Arena for the Orlando Magic here in Florida. And then somebody challenged him because he was doing corporate gigs as a magician. And then someone said, Gio, why don't you create a leadership talk? So he went out and wrote a leadership talk. And then he inserted a couple little interesting things in it. One of the things he did was he brought 4 people up on stage. He has them all standing kind of like in a square, and one by one they sit down and they start sitting on top of each other. And before long, you have 4 people sitting on top of each other, and they're all like in sitting position, and they're all holding each other up. And it shows you that a good team leader will get people supporting each other. So they're all sitting up. It's so magical. So he presented something on stage that looked amazing. And then he threw out into the audience, like everybody had these little, because he's a magician, he had little pieces of paper, and then you have to fold them and see if you can get a penny through it. So he gives you a penny and he gives you this piece of paper, and it's a little thing of magic. So he did these little antiquated, fun little entertaining thing along with his keynote. Guess what? Giovanni Livera was a $20,000 $1,000 speaker because he had a great presentation. He was not really a leader, but he was a leader in his field of magic, but he was a creative genius. He sat down, he wrote it, then he marketed it, and he was a successful keynoter. So there are a lot of people like yourself who have big personalities who think, what should I do? Digital marketing. I'm going to write an amazing keynote on digital marketing, and I'm going to show through science something on stage where I'm going to take somebody and I'm going to all of a sudden now you're an influencer. How did I do it? Boom, 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 boom. And you wow the audience with this thing. And that is how you go from obscurity into celebrity, by doing something magical and something creative on stage.
Good. And I would have to do that or else I can't be bothered.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'd have to create something really amazing or I can't be bothered. And so probably where I am right now is I can't be bothered. But I'm feeling like I can. I'm feeling like I'm finding my energy and I'm kind of coming back and I'm engaging with brilliant people like you. What did I want to say about that? You see, this is for me where it gets interesting, because now you've come now. His keynote has much more engagement in it in the way that I would want mine to have.
Yes.
And this is what's interesting. So for the people who are, bless them, say they're more scared of dying than they are public speaking. For those people, they're so wrong, because it's not about them. We've covered that. But there's much more interesting aspects to it. Like this idea of social, compliance. Like, so when you stand up in front of a group of people, you are leading them and they will be led. That's fascinating to me. Like, that is fascinating. The fact that you can do that. And then the other thing is about how you actually motivate people. So I tell you, I throw soldiers around the room. I do all these things. What I realized quite early on when I started running my business and presenting like marketing type stuff regularly is that it's not particularly easy to motivate British people. We're not like Americans. Like we can all start wooing and stuff and everyone gets excited because we're much more reserved than that. But what you have to do, like I developed like this militaristic kind of bent, because if you can elicit some kind of Dunkirk spirit from these people, then they get really, do you know what I mean? Like Churchillian, like that sort of thing. Yes. That's really interesting to me. And the really interesting thing in all of this is how you actually motivate people, you know, how you find those really quirky ways of landing the message where you give them like 80% so that they have to work out the last 20% themselves, so that then they feel like they've come to a realization of their own. Or you don't even know the 100%, but you can get them to 80% and they'll do the 20% of work for themselves. Now, so those three things, like the social compliance that goes on, I've forgotten what the middle one was, but the last one, like how you deliver these messages in a way that people can really engage, or not engage, but people can really work with, be motivated by, be moved by. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Those are the really interesting things. And it just seems to me like this entry level, it's scary standing in front of people. It's just such a, whatever it is, non sequitur. Like it's ridiculous. It shouldn't happen. Okay, but you're in the world fixing that. That's good. We've got 9 minutes left. Is all.
Awesome. I think we should do a quick coaching session for you.
No, we can't, because we've still got 3 questions to go. I would love to do that, but this has been, like, you've seen through the facade, this has been a coaching session for me. I think I want to come and get on one of your boot camps. Here's like, before we get into the last 3 questions, here's the last question I want to ask you. Now, I know you're benefiting because you're coaching people to do TEDx's and TEDs and those things.
Yes.
Has TEDx and TEDs, what effect has that had on the industry? Because clearly now we get to see many more speakers. Mm-hmm. What effect has that had? Has it made it a better place to make a living, or a more challenging place to make a living? What effect has that had?
Yeah, absolutely. TED Talk is a really good brand. And so it's a nonprofit organization. And what they're looking for is an audacious idea. So they actually have a section where you can apply for an audacious idea, but they're looking for the big idea of something that you have accomplished, something that was life changing. And it's usually one idea. It doesn't have to be a whole business, it could be one simple idea. I had one client who was a physician, and his one simple idea was that in hospitals, it would be good to check in with your bosses and the doctors. And so he told a story about how he went through a period where there was a little boy who passed away and he was still had his living organs, and the family decided to donate his organs. And then what happens is they automatically go out and they give those donor, they say, oh, you're going to get a donor heart, you're going to get a donor eyes, whatever. And at the last minute, the family changed their mind and they decided not to donate the organs. And what happened was everybody in the hospital was crushed. And it was so hard because then all these other people that were waiting could have died and didn't get the heart and what all that stuff. And so it was very depleting and depressing for all of the staff. And so the social worker came to Larry, my client, and he was saying, how are the people on my staff? How are they doing? And she said one question to him that changed his life. She said, they're fine, Larry, but how are you? And he started crying. And he realized, oh my God, what is happening to me? And what happened was the top of the hospital and all the leaders don't get asked, how are you doing? And so he made a culture in his in his medical environment. Check in with your leaders, because you know what, they're hurting too. And right now, leaders and doctors, dentists, veterinarians are the highest level of suicide. And so that was one little idea, and that idea has permeated through the hospital profession that, hey, check in with the doctors. How are you doing? Just asking that. So yeah, one little idea, it can make a difference in your career, because once you stand up in front of an audience, even if it's in front of your team and you do a bang up job, it can totally change the trajectory. I have a client that I worked with a couple of years ago who was working as a fundraiser. And she came to me, she said, I want to do something big. We're having a meeting where we tell what we did last year with our fundraising goals and how we accomplished them and what we're going to do next year. And so I said, let's write a speech. So here it was. Everybody else just shows up. So at the speech was the CEO of the hospital, her board directors, and her associates who were also fundraisers. So Dawn stood up in front of the audience and said, do you remember when you started here at Florida Hospital a few years ago? And you drove up to the driveway, the circular driveway, you parked, and then you walked in the door. And the first couple of days you looked at all the people like, I wonder if I'm going to like them. Are they going to like me? Well, after a week, like you, I knew this was the place for me. We, over the past year, have been able to accomplish this, this, and this. And I was able to work with such an amazing team. And last year, my numbers were this. And this year, it's amazing. We've got so many things on the docket. We're partnering with this group, and we're expanding. And together with all of us, I'm excited to be able to announce my numbers are this. Now, this speech was about 2 minutes long. She told some of the statistics, what they did last year. She told the vision for next year. And at the end, she said, like you, I'm so excited to be a part of this team to not only change the patients, but our community. Thank you. So she did this 2-minute prepared speech. She sat down. The CEO said, have you been in Toastmasters for a year? Her board director said, oh my gosh, I need to borrow that speech. That was so good. And her associate said, you jerk, you just threw us under the bus. You made us look bad. So P.S., that changed her career. She got a promotion, and after that, very quickly after that, and then she was in a leadership role, and then she was asked to speak at a team, something locally, and P.S. now she's a politician running government stuff. It changed her career. I've had people that have done one speech, one toast to somebody at a 40th birthday party, and everybody sees them and they're like, oh my gosh, you're like really good. So being prepared, having the script, practicing can change your life, and it can elevate your career in a way that a lot of other things cannot.
You are so good at this. Okay, cool. Right. I've like the coaching has worked. My keynote is going to be from ordinary to extraordinary in 3.5 simple steps or something like that. It's going to be the most ordinary presentation ever. And then I need to get people to pay me $20,000 to present it. Okay. Question number 3. Are we okay? We're going to run over by a few minutes. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I love talking shop. It's fun.
Okay. Super cool. Right. So question number 3 is, and you have to keep this down to like a minute or 2 minutes because we want to put this on TikTok is where it wants to go, and Insta Reels and those places. So the question is, what is your recommendation for people who want to get better? I mean, you've told us, but now I need you to tell us in 2 minutes. For people who want to get better at developing and presenting keynotes.
Okay, in order to be good at keynotes, you have to have a lot of content, which means you have to read a lot. You have to know statistics, and you have to be able to rattle off a couple of stories in your head, whether they're your stories or someone else's stories. And then you have to practice to precision. So you're not doing a lot of ums and ahs, that you can get across your content in a quick manner and to have the head and the heart as a part of that story. So it does take practice. So I would say write it down, rehearse it, perform it, and go do it and see, like you do in digital marketing. Does it work? Does it resonate? If everybody bursts out laughing, you got a good one. If everyone's like, what did that mean? Then try over, keep reading, keep writing, and keep performing.
Cool. I have a presentation about presenting called Present Like a Mother, because I think that's what you have to do. So maybe that should be my keynote. Okay, good. That was brilliant. That was within 2 minutes, easily. So now I'm going to check in with you. Oh, no. What should people read? This is the first thing.
I was going to say, I didn't hear that question yet. What do people read? I like a favorite author of mine who has a lot of great stories is Pat Williams. And he was the founder of the Orlando Magic in Orlando. And Pat has been a speaker for many, many years. And he hand wrote his 80 books, and he does it on a typewriter and sends it to his editor. The reason why I like Pat is that he's been in the sports world. And for anybody, whether it's a male or female, sports is a unifying activity. And it's something that we all have been a part of. Not everybody's a fan, but it does genuinely, the lessons that you learn out of sports can be good business lessons. And so it's a good, safe place to go. So I like Pat Williams as a speaker and as an author, because he has so many books and so many stories in the context of his books. But secondly, don't stop reading.
Okay. Firstly, though, you have to name one or two so we can put some links for people.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to have to get the name of the book right now in front of what I'm reading. I've got several books that I'm reading right now.
Okay.
The Mastery Journal. And this is by John, what's his name? John Dumas. This book is so good. It's John Dumas. It's John Lee Dumas.
Okay.
And so I'm reading this book, and this is about how to stay focused and how to make your business a success. And so I love that. I'm reading this book right now called Roar. This was represented to me or told about from a big celebrity speaker bureau. And this is Michael Clinton. And this is about in the second part of your life, like how do you make sense of it? Like you've already accomplished a lot. What do you do now? And then I would say third, if people are doing TED Talks, Talk Like TED. This is a great book, and Carmine Gallo is the author. So these are 3 that I'm reading right now that are great.
You're an absolute star. And the thing is, this is all, I mean, you've realized this is all just counseling for me, what's going on here. So that's good. And I don't read enough. So that's why I'm asking people what I should read. So I will pick up those recommendations 100%. Okay,
you
good.
Know how I scan it. I see which one of the titles are going to really resonate with me, and I do it quick. And then I take a pen like this, and this helps me focus and so I'll do it in spurts. And so then I'll outline a book, and I'll say, here's the part that is important to me. So I always and I take notes in all of the columns. So that helps me stay focused.
Wow. I need to do that. I'm going to take you up on that recommendation. I have got hold of some reading glasses. This is what they look like. So they are definitely just for reading. So I am on a mission. There you go. Yours are much cooler than mine. Okay, good. So, final question, and I just have to check in with you first. How have you found this experience?
Well, I think it's fun. It's fun to be able to talk about what you do in a more extended format. So I want to congratulate you for having such an interesting, introspective type of conversation. I find you to be a really genuine, authentically curious podcaster and host. And I think that's really fun for the guests. I hope that the audience finds and gets good information from all of your guests, because I think you're doing a great job. And I am looking forward to promoting you on all my social media. And then when you come to the United States, I'll help you do your presentations and hopefully get you booked on stage, because let's face it, the world needs to hear more of Martin.
You are so good at this. Thank you so much. I'm so happy. Okay, good. I just needed to know that you quite enjoyed it so that you wouldn't find it too painful throwing a couple of people under the bus for me to interview.
I don't think it's putting anyone under the bus. I can imagine that all of them, if they get copies of it, could utilize the content and zero it down and use it for a lot of their social media. So no, I think it's brilliant, and I think you're a genuine star. So okay. Yes, I'll make sure that you get some good names.
Fantastic. Good. So now you have to tell me who those people are. And it has to be people that you can introduce me to, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just make them, because they're going to be people that I have coached who are that are brilliant. Do you want me to do it right now, or do you want me to?
Because when we get really ordered, well, like today, Tim introduced me to two people, and he had a lot to say about the first person, and he didn't have so much to say about you. But I would have included that in the introduction. But when we get really on this, then we'll be including the clip. So when I do the introduction at the beginning, I'll say, and Mary introduced us, and this is what she had to say. So this is your opportunity to kind of pitch them a little bit. Like, why would I speak to them? Or why would we want to hear from them?
Okay, so I'll give you a couple.
Please.
Right now?
Yep.
Okay, so I'd like to introduce you to Tyson Russell. Tyson Russell is a lot of brands' secret sauce. He has the ability and can build a website for you very quickly. He is a genius mind at marketing. He actually has the ability to do operations and a boatload of things. So he's one of those geniuses that will help you figure out things. So he can talk forever. He's been a professor and a teacher for a long time, but he was the brains and the executor behind brands that have made millions of dollars and have gone and spoken around the world. So I like Tyson Russell. He does our website. He would be a phenomenal person. I would like, Angela Robbins, she's probably not going to have time. There's another gal that might be interesting, Wendy Stevens. Wendy Stevens is called the Guerrilla Marketer, and she has in one weekend created a TikTok campaign that hit well over 1 million views. She now is the owner of a product called Dogevity, and she has partnered with Kevin Harrington, who is on Shark Tank. And Wendy has made millions of dollars. She's made many podcasts go to the news and noteworthy. So she has helped many authors become New York Times bestsellers. And she would be somebody that I'd be happy to introduce you to as well. There is a client that I have. Limu McGill is another person who I think would be a genius. Limu has a backstory that's amazing. At one point in her life, she was homeless, and she decided to use the law of attraction to increase her revenue and to change her life. And so Limu ended up as working in a pharmaceutical company, and she started seeing that everybody in this office, which was the customer service, was getting sick and dying. And she was like, I better get out of here. So she decided to jump ship, use the law of attraction to create and manifest a new career where she has been a consultant. And she recently left the consulting business, a pharmaceutical, and is now teaching leadership and teaching amazing skills to people using intuition for their careers. So she's another one that I would love to introduce you to. How's that?
That is amazing. That is the best billing that anyone's ever done for anyone they've introduced me to. You're too good at this. You're just too good.
Well, thank you. I really truly love it, and I hope that you make money out of this podcast.
Yeah, but you
So
know what? If I can just motivate people to be thinking more mindfully about their marketing, about their sales, about their presentations, about all of those things, that's actually good enough for me. Really good enough for me. Okay, we got to the end. How are you feeling?
that's awesome. I feel great. You've motivated me and you've inspired me to keep going. And as an entrepreneur, there are days where it's hard for all of us. And these are the kind of bright spots. It's like, I'm on the right path. I really love it. And I do truly love what I'm doing. I feel like I found my passion. So I really appreciate getting to talk about it. And hopefully I did motivate some people as well.
Cool. I'm glad you said that at the end because it doesn't really come through that this is kind of your passion, that you've got loads of energy for this. It doesn't really, you don't really wear it, like some people wear it, but no, you absolutely do. So what we'll do now is we will say goodbye for the benefit of anyone who's made it all the way to the end. And then what we'll do is we'll stop recording and we'll say goodbye like normal human beings. Mary, I've had so much fun. This has been such a cool conversation. You've been so generous with your amazing experience. And I have thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Aw, thank you. I really appreciate it. It's been such a fun time. And as you can tell, I love sharing the good news about helping people find their purpose and their passion in life and talking about it and really being able to inspire the world. I don't think there's anything greater that any of us can do.
I don't think so. And I think you are doing it amazingly. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
thank you. I appreciate that.